All right, back at it. Another episode of the More to It podcast. I'm the host, Jay Moore. And guys, it is finally game week. It's here. It's felt like the last football game we watched Nebraska play was against Iowa last Black Friday. It seems like it's been about 3.5 years ago. It's been brutal. It's been a grind getting through this. 2020 has sucked. And we finally have Nebraska football this week, people. And I could not be more excited. And I get to see out my plan for with this pod for game weeks. Because my whole, you have, obviously I've had my guests talking about whatever. Obviously a lot of football, some baseball, a lot of golf, some basketball. As my last one with Tim Miles came out, go back and listen to that one. It's great. Tim was awesome. But, when football was canceled back in August, I'm like, damn, what the hell am I going to do? Do I go back and do old games? And some really good podcasts. I mean, Nick Baugh has done a great job looking at some old games and breaking them down. I'm like, what am I going to do? I was like, I'll just probably have to keep the guests going. But now that football's back, here's my plan is, early in the week, Monday, Tuesday, I'm just going to shoot out a quick 15, 20-minute pod on a little preview of the opponent and like 4 questions. I'm going to have 4 questions heading into this game. I'll do 2 offensive, 2 defensive questions. And obviously then come Sunday, when I do my post-game reaction to that game that Nebraska played on that Saturday, or Friday, as they're going to do this year with Iowa again, I will see if those 4 questions were answered, and then obviously I have a reaction to the game. But knowing that it is finally game week, that means Big Red Wrap-Up is back. So you can join me on NET, Nebraska's PBS and NPR stations for game highlights and analysis on Big Red Wrap-Up Tuesday nights live at 7 on NET World and Facebook, and at 10 on NET. So it'll be myself, my man Michael Severe. We've been doing. He joined the show last year after Kevin Kugler, who had been on this show for decades. Him and I will be up there and chatting about Ohio State, just like I'm going to be chatting with you guys now. And let's look at Ohio State. I know a lot of you probably are a little frustrated that you get arguably one of the best teams in the nation off the bat. Frankly, I don't care. Frankly, I would have been happy playing the Buffalo Bills, the Chicago. I don't care. I just want to see Nebraska play football. Coincidence? I don't know. But what I do love is that Nebraska and Ohio State pretty much joined forces to make sure that Big Ten football is back. And we kicked down Kevin Warren's door and said, you're being crazy. Everyone else is playing football. SEC, ACC, you name it. What are we doing here? Let's get back to playing football. And we joined forces, and we made it happen. Football's back. And I love the fact that we're playing first game of the season. Is it going to be a challenge? Yeah. Will Ohio State probably win? Yeah. But crazier things have happened in 2020, let's be honest. But there's a reason why you play the game. Nebraska opens up as a 26-point underdog. It's anywhere from 23 to 26. Over-unders right now are at 65 points. I'll give you my score prediction later in this. Do I think Nebraska will cover? Yeah. But it's just, let's be honest. This year's been so weird. This is how everything's been drawn out. No spring ball. Granted, now these guys have had, the 12-hour rule. Now I don't know what they've been able to do or what certain schools accomplished during these 12-hour rules. Meetings, walkthroughs, it's kind of a spring ball-ish, but I don't think a whole lot of on-field stuff was going down. But they've been practicing for a while, so who knows, man. That's why you got to play the game. But just obviously looking, Ohio State is bringing back a ton of production. Justin Fields is coming back. Arguably one of the best college football players in 2020. Him and Trevor Lawrence out at Clemson. Those are the 2 dudes that everyone's going to be talking about. obviously, I want to say they're going to be in New York for the Heisman, but I don't think they're going to be in New York for the Heisman. I think it's all virtual this year, just on par with what 2020 brings. I mean, they lose Chase Young, but then they bring back a guy like Zach Harrison, who played as a true freshman, a 5-star recruit, had 24 tackles, including 5 for a loss last year, as a true freshman, by the way. So their production is coming back. Here's what Ohio State. I try to give you some stats, a few stats, not a ton. I'm not a huge stat guy. I'm going to get to my questions, my 4 questions. I'll just give you some stats here. So rushing production, Ohio State returns 46.8. Now they lost J.K. Dobbins. He's off the NFL, but they bring back Master Teague. It's kind of a sweet name, to be honest. And they add Trey Sermon, the transfer from Oklahoma. So you get that 1-2 punch with Justin Fields in their power spread scheme offensively that Ryan Day is taking over from the great Urban Meyer. And they're our defense is going to have their hands full. I'll kind of break down why I think are the main issues at defense and some of these questions I'll get into. But they return 46.8% of their rushing yards. 92% of their passing yards is back. Obviously, that's Justin Fields. The other 8% is backup when they're when they blew Nebraska out and so on and so forth. Receiving yards, 50% of that's back from last year. Tackles, 54% of those guys are back from last year. Tackles for loss, 44% of those guys are back. 51.4% of the passes defended are back. And obviously, Shaun Wade, you want to talk about Nebraska joining forces with Ohio State. Shaun Wade's dad was very upfront, leading the charge, setting up shop in front of Big Ten offices. Shaun Wade opted out. Shaun Wade's back in. He could have left last year, but he didn't. I mean, this team is loaded. I mean, you look at every major offensive statistic last year, they're like top 10 in everything. Every major category. Defensively, damn near the same thing. Here is one. I'm gonna leave you with this feather in your cap kind of last year. So I think this game comes down to what Nebraska offensively and Ohio State does offensively. And Ohio State loses a lot of guys. I said this. But if Nebraska can get at and score enough points and buy enough time to maybe somehow this year 3 in Shenander's defense, Nebraska can make some stops, maybe get some turnovers, give them some sort of a chance. Hell, make it respectable. But here, let me give you this. So just 3 teams had a success rate of 39% or better against Ohio State in 2019 defensively. Clemson, who beat them in the semifinals of the college football playoff. Penn State, another phenomenal football team. Nebraska will get them just in a couple weeks. And the third team is Nebraska. So Nebraska had a 39% success rate offensively against them last year defensively. Now, we remember that game last year. We kind of went into a wishbone veer, kind of look, and they had to call timeout. So granted, they did some good things offensively last year. Defensively, we couldn't stop a nosebleed against Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins, and you go down that list of all those guys we're still going to see offensively. So it's very interesting with that stat and what the offense can potentially do. Nebraska's offense. Now you got obviously Adrian, Luke McCaffrey. You got the running backs rooms locked and loaded, tight end rooms locked and loaded, wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson. You're gonna have some big guys have to step up on the outside. But I like the O-line group, arguably the best we've had in a very long time at that O-line group. So they got to get it going. But let's look into the 4 questions that I have heading into this Ohio State game. Now, granted, it is Ohio State game, it's the first game, but it's kind of the 4 main questions I have heading into this football season right now. And my first question is a defensive question. Who is going to step up as an all-conference pass rusher in this 3-4 scheme underneath Chenander? Because in the 3-4 defense, and I've played in it, it is all about your edge guys. And we have been extremely inconsistent. Now, I don't know. I mean, trying to think back. Who was the last guy at Nebraska that had double-digit sacks? Nebraska returns Ben Stilley, who had 3 last year, and that was the highest that's getting returned this year. But you look at this outside linebacker group, and I see a guy like the 2 guys is Caleb Tanner and Garrett Nelson. Now, Tanner has all the tools. He has all the tools in the world to make plays. Now, this is year 3 for himself in this defense. He has the long arms. He has athleticism. But now he finally should have a full grasp of what's expected of him in this outside linebacker position. So he should be able to take that next step, make that jump. Year 3, this is when a lot of players make their biggest jump. So hopefully Caleb Tanner could be that next guy who become the all-conference pass rusher. Now I'm not meaning first team, second. I'm just talking about first team, second team, third team type production. Can Caleb Tanner do that? Then I look at a guy like Garrett Nelson, who was thrown into the ring of fire as a true freshman coming from a school out at Scottsbluff, Nebraska. His effort, his energy is the best you'll find, but at times is out of control. He is too out of control, does not play well. He was a liability because he was too out of control. He did not play well in the scheme and the system. He put guys in tough spots. He was supposed to force the ball outside, and then but he wouldn't. He would then set the edge. When you set the edge, you're supposed to force the ball inside. And now you have guys in opposite gaps. I can think about a play I did on Big Red Rapid last year against Purdue, where obviously Nebraska should have won that game. And he does not spill. The ball cuts up inside. Now you have 2 guys outside. I think Purdue, the running back, damn near hits his head in the goalpost and kind of gets momentum going in that football game. Nebraska should have came out of West Lafayette a winner. But that's for another discussion. We've discussed that at length last year. So can Garrett Nelson or Caleb Tanner step up and become an all-conference pass rusher to make this 3-4 defense succeed? And the reason I say you need it within the 3-4 defense is you can start, when you got elite conference pass rushers, really good pass rushers, you can start dictating protections within the offensive line. They're going to start sliding one way, giving more help to that one pass rusher on the outside. You usually don't have to, in 3-4 defenses, you don't have great pass rushers inside. You just don't, just because they're just playing head up to inside on tackles and guards. It's just hard to get a rush. But you think of elite guys on the edge. Obviously, you think of Von Miller, Khalil Mack. Those guys are game changers. Offenses have to know where those guys are at all time. They're sliding, giving help, helping a tackle, helping a tight end, chipping with a back. You start doing that leaves other people one-on-one. Like Jared Crick playing with Sue all those years. Jared Crick, hell of a football player, but got his stats padded a lot because people were double and triple teaming Sue. So now you can start really being a successful 3-4 defense if you can somehow develop, and hopefully they start to develop some of these guys in year 3 as an outside pass rusher. So who can step up and be an all-conference pass rusher? That's my first question. My second question is another defensive question. Can an experienced back 7 help out an inexperienced D-line? You lose the Davis twins, you lose Darian Daniels. All 3 guys are on NFL rosters. Ben Stilley is the only guy that has played significant time that's coming back. Can a back 7 of JoJo Doman, Will Honus, Colin Miller, Luke Reimers, Deontay Williams, Markel Dismuke, Cam Taylor, Britt, DiCaprio Boodle help out an inexperienced front 7? I don't like it this way. Football's one up front. That's why I like offensively where Nebraska is going to be this year, because they have such depth and experience at the O-line position. Football's one up front. It's not one in the back 7. But can they help? I hope so. I hope so. I hope that Deontay Williams and Markel Dismuke and Cam Taylor Britt and DiCaprio Boodle can provide like a half a second to a second more in coverage to get Ben Stilley, to get Damian Daniels, to get, Casey Rogers. I'm just trying to get these young guys that haven't played a lot. Keem Green. Can you provide that extra second for them to get to the QB, to get a sack or get a hand on a ball or to cause some sort of pressure to have a missed throw? Can JoJo, can Will, can Colin, can Luke play off of their mistakes a little bit because they're smart, they're fast, they've been in this defense? Can they clean things up for them? Can they, when they recognize a mistake and they can see it, and can they make them right? They make the D-line right? Normally, I'd love it to be the other way around. Can you have a very experienced front 4 to 5 will always help out the back 7, always will. But can this very experienced back 7 help out a very inexperienced front 7? We'll see. And it's a very tough test against Ohio State. Now to the last two questions for going into this Ohio State game and this 2020 season. Who's going to be the second running back behind Dedrick Mills? You don't have Maurice Washington anymore. Who's it going to be? We saw Ramir Johnson. He saw him make some big plays against Maryland. Nebraska won that game handily. Is it going to be like Ronald Tompkins, a guy who had a major injury in high school? Can he bounce back from that? Or are you going to see young guys, Marvin Scott, Sevion Morrison? Dedrick got a ton of the load last year, and I think he likes the load. I think he likes the main percentage of the carries because you see him. He got better as games went on. He got better later in the year, knowing he'd have to come in and out and start changing out with Maurice Washington. He's a guy that played at Georgia Tech, where in that offense, to where in that the old triple option veer, you want to call it wing type of offenses, where you're running that thing 60, 70 times a game. And he likes to get in that flow. But who's going to be that guy that can step up behind them? I mean, I should see who's going to spell him against Ohio State this first game. Who's going to be that first guy off the bench? And we'll see. So my last question here, and this position group I think has been very underutilized so far in the 3 years with Scott Frost. Is the tight end position finally going to get going? And when you have good tight ends, they can cause mismatch opportunities against linebackers, even against safeties. You can do a lot of different things, split them out, put them in motion, do all sorts of things. Can the tight end position finally get going in 2020? You have 4 really good guys and a lot of experience. You obviously have Jack Stoll, Kurt Rafdahl, Austin Allen, and then you have the Rutgers transfer, Travis Vokolek, coming in. You look at, Jack Stoll has been targeted 34 times in 18 and 38 times in 2019. Now he only had caught about 20 balls, and it's just the production has not been there. The blocking inconsistencies have been there for that group. They're just at the point of attack, they haven't been great. But you have a guy like Austin Allen who's damn near 6'7", 6'6", and you can throw some jump balls to him. Can the tight end group finally get going and provide an outlet to where we don't know who can step up and help out the wide receiver group? Obviously, you have Wan'Dale Robinson. We don't know Omar Manning's situation on the edge, playing out wide. We got to have guys that can step up and make plays and have bodies and have red zone threats and be able to jump up and get a fade route in the corner. You got to have that production, and we haven't had it. We just haven't had I would like to think since about Ethan Carter seems like the last tight end that's really just stepped up and taken some games over and used really well. So can the tight end position group finally get going in 2020? Can those 4 guys I just talked about step up and finally make some things happen? So those are the 4 questions we'll see going into the Ohio State game and just going into the season. Like I said, I'll touch base on these questions heading into or after in the post game. But these are main questions, in my opinion, for all of 2020, all 8-9 games. Score prediction, I like Nebraska to cover in this one. I really do. I think they have enough offensive weapons to hang in there in this one. Now, defensively, like I said, can that back seven help out a very inexperienced D-line? I hope so. I really do. I just know that when you're young up front, it's hard. You've only played a few snaps a game, and all of a sudden you're thrown in there against Ohio State, whoever, and all of a sudden 40, 60 snaps get going. Can your mind be there? It's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing. I've even mentioned a guy like Ty Robinson, who I thought looked really, really well against Wisconsin last year, but granted, he only played, 10 snaps maybe. So that's my biggest key in this one. Can the defense hang? So I like Ohio State in this one, 42 to 24. So that's a Nebraska cover, 18 points. That's if you get the over/unders at 65, in some places 65.5. That's 66 points, and that's the overs as well. So obviously there'll be more discussion of this and myself and Michael Severe on Big Red Wrap Up. So join me and Michael on NET, Nebraska's PBS and NPR stations for game highlights and analysis on Big Red Wrap Up. Tuesday nights live at 7 on NET, World, and Facebook, and at 10 on NET. We'll be there. And that is it. That's what I have for the preview pod. We'll be back. I'll be back Sunday with the post-game reaction. And we got football back. It's back. Thank the Lord. It is back. I know we're all happy. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll be back for the post-game reaction on Ohio State. Later.
A Hurrdat Media Production.